How y'all doing tonight? It is officially game weekend. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing all right. As always, I am Slim, joined by my boy JT. If you didn't notice, if you've watched recent videos, this is not our usual location. We are live from my parents' basement tonight.
Undisclosed location in Polk County.
We'll just tell them it's here. They ain't never gonna find this place. No, I still got my apartment. My boy still has his place. We are here tonight for a big weekend coming up. As you all know, Iowa State, Kansas State tomorrow.
It's just like back in the day, dicking around in your basement.
That's right.
Like we always used to.
That's right. How you feeling? How you feeling about tomorrow?
I'm feeling good. I'm excited. I'm a little bit nervous just because, kind of like we talked about last week, it's kind of out of the ordinary for Iowa State's first game of the season to be so important. You could make the argument that it's the most important game of the season. And when you talk about an Iowa State team and a Matt Campbell team that is prone to slow starts, makes you a little bit nervous. Having potentially your most important game being the first game of the season.
Absolutely.
So we want to get into the depth chart, the two deep. Does that sound good to you?
Yep, let's hit it.
All right. So for those of you that didn't see, it was about a couple of days, I think earlier this week, Matt Campbell dropped the first two deep of the season. Now, just for context purposes, some of you may know that when it comes to these depth charts that the team releases, they're not always the most serious thing in the world. They don't always end up actually being what happens. Some people question their accuracy. Some people question how seriously Matt Campbell takes releasing those. Some people even go as far as to saying that sometimes he plays mind games with his players just to kind of motivate them. But all we can do is take it at face value. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to go position by position and see what's going on with this depth chart. And it's just something to reference as we get into the game tomorrow. So we'll start with the quarterback position. No surprises, really.
Drum roll, please.
We're going to have Rocco Becht being the starting quarterback. Not a shocker. What's a little bit of a shocker is that for those of you that aren't familiar with how these depth charts work, the word "or" is used if Matt Campbell supposedly hasn't decided who's going to fit into a spot. I think we talked about last week that Connor Moberly was likely locked into that backup position. But when this depth chart came out, he's actually listed as an "or" with Alex Mansky. I don't know if that means anything, but I was a little bit surprised by that. It was a very minor surprise. I would say the least surprising position in regards to what we thought and what the depth chart looks like is the running back position. They've got Carson Hansen and Abu Sama 1-2 with Dylan Lee and Aiden Flora kind of "or" for that third spot. Next, we have the tight end position. And this is where there was a little bit of surprise. You got Ben Bramer and Gabe Burkle supposedly kind of in that "or" spot. Neither one of them really considered the starter, when I had kind of figured that Bramer would be the guy from the get-go. But
I would agree. I would agree he's probably the guy, but I think you're probably going to see them both on the field at the same time.
Yeah. That's the thing, is that with those tight ends, there's always going to be so many of them on the field. It probably doesn't mean a whole lot. Fullback's going to be Tyler Moore and Keaton Roskup. Not a whole lot to say there. I'll let you kind of take it away, because you had first brought this up to me. I was kind of thinking the same thing, but there's a few surprises when it came to what was listed for wide receivers.
Yeah, so we know they both got the two new transfers that are coming in, obviously to replace two guys that are now on the Iowa State Texans there. Both projected to make the roster. I would imagine Higgins is probably going to start for him. So you're losing two NFL talents at wideout with those two guys between Higgins and Knoll. Townsend and Sowell are not the projected starters. They are, like you said, they are used with the "or." I really kind of wonder if Campbell's learned from slow starts from guys trying to get accustomed to the offense. If they're if you'll see a lot of them, but I don't think you're going to see them maybe necessarily right away. I think they'll try and find a way to scheme them in, and who knows, one of them could blow out and have a big game, but think he's kind of going with the more conservative route with guys that know the offense and, just trying to get something going right off the bat. Like you said, this is a game that it really could be maybe one of the biggest games of the year. It could be a bookend matchup depending on how this plays out and how the Big 12 plays out. They could see each other in Dallas at the end of the year. So I think he's really not trying to, maybe put too much on the line and gamble too much. Campbell likes to gamble when it comes to certain things, but I think he's kind of found a more conservative path. So I don't think there's too much of a concern in that regard. I think both those guys will have huge impacts at some point this year. But like you said, I think it's going to be really run heavy, run reliant, and the tight ends are going to be kind of what makes or breaks this team.
Yeah, and so I think we were kind of thinking when that depth chart came out, it was really kind of flipped upside down from what we thought it would be. I was kind of thinking that the 3 headline wide receivers would be Xavier Townsend, Chase Sowell, and Daniel Jackson. Don't forget about Daniel Jackson. But all 3 of those guys were listed at the bottom of the 2 deep. Now, not necessarily the bottom of the depth chart, because this just lists the first 2 or 3 spots depending on how you look at it. But if you keep that in mind, we've got the starters as Eli Green, Dominic Overby, and Brett Eskilson with Carson Brown in there to kind of round it out as well. He was a guy that was kind of unsung last year. I believe he caught a touchdown in the Big 12 championship game. Carson Brown did.
I believe he also had a couple of big catches against Miami there.
Yeah. So Carson Brown is kind of an unsung guy that unsurprisingly finds himself, but potentially in a starting spot, depending on how you look at the step chart. So if we move on to the offensive line, like we talked about last week, the offensive line is probably in its best position that we've seen in a while. Maybe not quite as good as we thought it would be for tomorrow's game, and we'll get to that in a little bit when we look at the injury report. The only little bit of drama, if you want to call it, when it comes to the depth chart is it looks like you basically got 3 guys competing for 2 spots when it comes to Dylan Barrett, Brendan Black, and Jim Boniface. Just on how I'm reading this depth chart, it looks like two of those 3 guys are going to occupy the center and guard position. Like I said, there's going to be some injury news that I think that'll kind of make it a moot point, but not a whole lot to say on the offensive line. Did you have anything on the O-line?
I just kind of hope that they can come out and they can perform the way that we need them to. Like I said, I think running is going to be a big part of the game tomorrow. If they can't move the ball on the ground, I don't know what they're going to be able to do through the air. I don't expect a high-scoring game. We'll get the picks a little later and what we're maybe going to put our money on, but I don't see this being a high-scoring game.
So that rounds out the offensive side of the ball. If we switch over to the defensive side, looking at the depth chart, not a whole lot of really not any surprises here. The starters are looking to be Tamatoa McDonough, who is a transfer. I believe he was from Yale, transfer from Yale. A really, really big guy who should be an impact player.
Coming in as a senior, actually.
Yeah, kind of one of those guys that, for those that don't know, I don't believe that the Ivy League does like red shirts and things like that. So a lot of these guys, they have these Ivy League guys, more of them have a bonus year to use, and a lot of them use that bonus year to transfer away from the Ivy Leagues and play their senior year somewhere else, kind of similar to what Jalen Travis did last year. I forget where Travis was from, but he was from an Ivy League school.
I want to say maybe Princeton.
Yeah, that sounds right. So the guy that I was searching for last week was Von Troy Malone. He was a transfer that came in. And then, of course, you've got Dominic Orange at nose guard. Defensive tackle Zamir Hawk, who has the potential to fill Dom Orange's place once he leaves next year. Real unsung guy, highly touted recruit.
He's a freshman, isn't he?
He's a sophomore. Zamir Hawk is a sophomore, but he'll have 2 years after Dom Orange leaves, and he's going to kind of be it seems like he's going to kind of be the guy once Dom Orange leaves. And then, of course, you've got Ike Isiagu on the other defensive end spot. Kind of like we talked about last week, you need to see some of these guys start to get to the quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. I know they got Bacon in there as their starting Mike, I believe. They really haven't had a guy that can get to the quarterback since McDonald went to the pros. They really need someone that can kind of get some pressure on the quarterback if they're going to play a drop 8. Obviously, you saw a lot last year. You play a drop 8 and you can't get to the quarterback, you're you can only cover down the field for so long before something happens or someone breaks the pocket and can torch you, as we saw in the Kansas game. So really need those three guys to step up, and then hopefully one of these linebackers can get down on the knuckles there and maybe add some pressure to it.
Yeah, and you mentioned those linebackers. That's where we'll move to next. That's kind of been the storyline of this defense, of kind of the 180-degree turn that this defense might see in regards to those linebackers. They were so injury plagued last year, and a lot of guys who typically wouldn't play had to play last year. And now you've got all those guys back that were injured, plus the experienced young guys. You've got Caleb Bacon, kind of the captain of that defense, more than likely coming in at the will linebacker. Cooper Evil is your starting Mike linebacker, and then Will McLaughlin is your starting Sam linebacker, and then just your depth guys in there: Zachary Lovett, Cale Berzina, who had a couple of nice games last year. Then you've got Carson Willich and Bo Goodwin. Any thoughts on the linebackers? Certainly excited to see what they look like all healthy. It could be interesting because while a lot of these guys are very familiar with the program, they haven't really played together a whole lot.
Yeah, you just kind of forget some of them exist, to be honest with you. I mean, Bacon went down on the very first series of last year. I mean, we all know his name pretty well here in the Midwest, especially if you're a State fan. He's kind of one of the anchors of the defense. He reminds me of kind of like a Jake Knott from back in the day. So it'd be interesting to see what he can bring as a fully healthy guy. Hopefully he can stay healthy this year. They really need him to kind of relieve some pressure from that secondary, which is, world class as far as Iowa State. As far as Iowa State's history goes, but it'd be nice to see some pressure put on the quarterback again. Avery Johnson's very versatile. You don't really want to give him too much time. Granted, they forced him into some mistakes last year, but just like this team, Kansas State is also another year older too. So you don't really want to give him too much wiggle room, especially with how slippery Johnson can be. So
yeah, they certainly have their work cut out for them. With Avery Johnson, that's going to be a very immediate test for those linebackers to see if they can contain Avery Johnson, who Avery Johnson's likely coming into the season as a little bit of a dark horse Heisman candidate, and that might be something that we get into a little bit later. But that'll bring us to what's typically the bread and butter of this John Haycock defense, and that's the defensive secondary, your safeties and your defensive backs. At the that very notable star position, you've got Marcus Neal as your starter. That star position has kind of been a very famous position in that defensive secondary. Guys like Greg Eisworth and Bo Freeler have played that star position. It's kind of a rover position. It's a third strong safety, a second strong safety, a third safety that kind of acts as a almost like a linebacker that just kind of roams
kind of like a safety valve almost.
Yeah, and you can see how key those, like I mentioned, Eisworth and Freeler. We'll see if Marcus Neal can do the same thing, and then Drew Surges is going to back him up. You've got the local talent, Jameson Patton, being the center fielder, starting at free safety with Deshaun James backing him up. Then probably the most talented player on the defense, Jeremiah Cooper, is listed as a strong safety. There's been a lot of talk of him playing more cornerback. So again, this is one of those things where maybe the depth chart isn't telling the whole story, but you kind of just have to take it at face value for now. The Cooper being the safety with Kai John Cummings Coleman, who is a freshman, a redshirt freshman, who's pretty highly touted. And then you've got Carson Van Dinter behind him. And then looking at your cornerbacks, obviously you've got Jontez Williams and Trey Bell are the starting cornerbacks. Jontez Williams has obviously been in the program for a while. Trey Bell is his first season. He was a transfer. And then you've got, I guess, really notably in the cornerback room is Benny Nagoy was the guy who converted from wide receiver. He is one of the backup cornerback spots. So, any thoughts on the secondary? I think maybe for the first time in a while, the safety position isn't the strongest, or the secondary isn't the strongest portion of that defense at right now. But we'll have to see if that changes.
I mean, it's just so hard to forecast what it's going to look like. College is obviously a lot different than the pros. So, year in, year out, the team is always different. Usually you get a couple warm-up games to kind of figure out who's going to be somebody. And with everything on the line and at stake here right away, it just, you really kind of the question marks are even bigger than what they normally would be at this point in the season. You really need some guys that you think are going to step up to really kind of be impact players, and you hope the question marks kind of figure themselves out early. Like you said, Cooper's still listed at safety. I really kind of wonder if that's going to depend on how the team kind of looks overall, and how these new corners can kind of hold up and cover. I know Cooper's probably one of the better coverage safeties in the entire nation. So, if you need to move him around, you have that option, but you'd like him to stay in that safety position to kind of relieve some of that stress from those deep balls. So, obviously Ngoy, he was a receiver last year. Like you said, he converted from wide receiver. We hit it last week with Matt Campbell being famous for moving athletes around. He almost kind of plays NCAA football with some of these guys, moving them to positions where they could excel a little better. I know you and me both have played college football extensively through the years, and sometimes you find out some guys are better at some defensive positions than offense, and vice versa. Campbell seems to bring the best out of guys when he moves them around to give them an opportunity. Obviously, Porter's in the NFL now. Sounds like he's going to start for the Raiders, which is incredible given that he'd never really seen the field on defense until the beginning of last year. So, you just got to kind of wait and see what everything kind of turns into, and you just kind of really hope for the best at that point.
Yeah, so that'll be kind of interesting to see what the safety position looks like. I feel like earlier in the season there were some rumors of some injuries there. I believe Benny Ngoy had been injured at some point. He's not listed as injured at this point. I don't believe he was on the injury report, but that'll kind of play into kind of how Cooper is utilized if he ends up being played at that cornerback position. So that kind of rounds out the offense and the defense. They do release depth charts for the specialists. So let's go ahead and check those out real quick. I mean, not really a whole lot to say here. I guess the one thing that at first I thought was mildly surprising was that Tyler Perkins was listed as an or with Jace Gilbert, but then I kind of forgot that last year that they really kind of shifted towards the tandem punting game, where it seemed like Perkins was more of the deep ball guy if they needed some distance. If maybe it was a 3-and-out at the 20-yard line, but maybe they were needing to punt at the 50-yard line, they would try out Jace Gilbert, who was more the pooch kicker. And so I think that's really all that means in that case. And then otherwise, not a whole lot of surprises. Nobody cares about the long snappers or who's holding the ball. Obviously, Conrady is going to be the place kicker. I guess we did speculate a little bit on who the returners were going to be. We did get it right with Xavier Townsend is listed as the starting both punt returner and kick returner. And then Aiden Flora, one of those depth running back guys, is listed as the backup kick returner. So it'll be exciting to see what Townsend does at the return level, to see if he's able to reproduce anything that Jalen Knoll brought to the table.
And they're almost identical as far as build and skills. So you just kind of hope that he can fall into that role. Obviously, when Hutchinson left, Higgins fit right into that role that he needed to replace, and then Knoll kind of built himself his own name there his last couple of years. So you just kind of hope that those guys can keep the ball rolling and can keep everything where it needs to be for him to be successful.
Yeah, and so that kind of rounds out the depth chart. I guess before I move on to the injury report, was there anything else that you wanted to touch on when it comes to the depth chart?
I don't think so.
Okay. So something that is new for this year is that the coaches are essentially being forced to put out an injury report, and that just kind of comes along with really it probably comes down to how much gambling money is in the game. people want to know what they're laying their money on, and now coaches are having to put out an injury report, which
Being
isn't
more
something.
transparent.
Yeah, being a little more transparent, which is something that they hadn't had to do. I guess I was listening to, I think it was two guys with Williams and Hassel, and they kind of speculated of like how are they going to be able to hold these guys accountable to what they put on that injury list. But again, just kind of taking this at face value, there really wasn't a whole lot of big names out for Iowa State. Something that I hinted at earlier when talking about the offensive line, Trevor Bohr, their starting left guard, I believe is where he was at on the depth chart, is out for tomorrow's game. Chris Williams did report on his show that it's not necessarily an injury, it's more of an illness situation. So that's probably a good thing that he's just going to be out for the game. But you're starting to hear that Trevor Bohr might be one of the best offensive linemen in that group. You're starting to see people talk about him as a potential draft pick. So kind of a bummer that you're not going to have your best offensive lineman out there
Covering the blind side.
Yeah.
Nonetheless.
Yeah. But so that's kind of a bummer, but it just kind of going back to that depth chart, you'll probably just see when it comes to those three interior lineman spots, I assume you'll see Dylan Barrett, Brendan Black, and Jim Boniface taking up those positions. If I had to guess, I would guess Brendan Black is left guard, Barrett takes up right guard, and I think Boniface was the center a lot last year. So I'm guessing that's how that'll shake out. Otherwise, not really a whole lot of surprises or really consequential injuries. That running back that got a lot of talk over the offseason, River Peppers, is considered out, but really not a whole lot of other guys. John Klosterman was a linebacker that played a little bit last year. I don't know if he was going to play much this year. He's out as well.
Yeah, he was kind of one of the fill-in guys.
Yeah. So he is out, but I don't know how consequential that will be. Two guys that we're likely going to play a little bit that are listed as questionable, not out, is that veteran wide receiver Daniel Jackson and then that linebacker Bo Goodwin are both questionable. So it's really nice to see the Cyclones relatively healthy going into the season. I think one of the most important things is if it'll be able to stay that way after the first game.
Yeah, you just kind of hope they can make it through it.
Yeah. And then when it comes to, obviously, we're not very well versed in who's on Kansas State's roster.
Nor should we be.
Yeah, I didn't really see anybody of significance. The only thing that matters that I can point out is that Avery Johnson is not on the injury list. That's the only player that I know.
I believe they got a defensive end that's out.
Yeah, there's a couple of defensive linemen that are out there. So I don't know. It's just, it is what it is. So ultimately, it seems like both teams are going into the season fairly healthy. So do we want to get into game picks? Do you have anything more that you wanted to talk about on the game? Maybe
I don't think so. Let's tell them where to put their money.
Yeah, so I'm pretty conflicted. I think we're going to see pretty early what it's going to be. I think really it comes down to kind of one key factor on each side of the ball. On the defensive side of things, it's just more if that defense is able to contain Avery Johnson. And then on the offensive side of the ball, it's who, if any, of those wide receivers really separate themselves. As we've been really harping on, a lot of talent in that wide receiver room, but not really a whole lot of chemistry, not a whole lot of time spent in a Cyclone uniform. So this is tough. I know that I think that the line is kind of within I believe Kansas State's a field goal favorite. So.
Everyone's saying to pick them right now.
Oh, really?
Really
if it's getting closer to a
really
pick 'em,
a toss-up.
I guess I'd probably have to take Iowa State with any points that might be available. Like I said, I don't say that with a whole lot of confidence. I guess right now, ESPN Bet has Kansas State favored by 3.5 points.
That's what I was going to say. It's 3.5 right now.
So I guess really, if you're looking at it being a close game, the safer money seems to be on Iowa State covering that 3.5. Even if they lose by 3, lose by a field goal, they'll still you'll still get your money. So that's kind of where I'm leaning at this point. I don't think I'm actually going to put my money on that. I don't tend to like to bet on my favorite teams all that often. But if I were to place a small wager, it would be on Iowa State to cover that 3.5. What about you?
Yeah, I'm not a big point spread guy. I'm usually money line, and then late last year I was kind of getting into the overs and unders. Obviously, I think the money line outright. I think I think one of the biggest factors is going to be whether or not Conradi and the special teams can come through without any major blunders. I really feel like it could come down to a field goal game potentially. I think turnovers are going to be a huge key factor. As long as you don't turn the ball over and you can hold on to it and maybe force a couple turnovers, I think that could swing the game either way for both teams by a wide margin. I don't think the game's going to end with a wide margin. I imagine this is going to probably come down to the final couple possessions of the game. And they got the over under at 50.5 right now.
Yeah, I was just going to mention I'm kind of liking the under there. If I had to take one of those, especially a game like this where it's a little earlier than usual, and it's such a different situation. You could see both teams come out a little slow, and just when it comes to both of these teams, they don't really, at least previously, they don't really air it out. They're pretty complimentary football like teams. So I wouldn't hate taking the under here, even if it turns out to be like a 27-21 game. You'd still catch that under.
That's what I got here.
Oh, that's what you have.
Yeah, that's what I have for the final score for the Clones. It's 27-21.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, because if you obviously if that's what you think is going to happen, then you'd want to take the under as well. It seems like that's what you're thinking as well.
Which is where those field goals kind of come into play.
Yeah.
So as long as you convert, if you get the ball in the opponent territory, you're going to have to get it in the end zone or at least get it through the uprights.
Yeah.
If you can't do that, who knows? It could get out of hand really quickly.
Yeah.
Because I think they got a good chance of being able to stop them. But at the same time, if you're going to win, you have to score points. I know Campbell's got some asinine record if they score over 25 points in a game. I once again believe that's probably the target they have to hit is at least 25. So that's where I see him. I don't see him putting up 30 in this game. I think if they put up 30, I think there's probably a defensive touchdown in there somewhere, which could very well happen, but I just don't see it in a game like this. I think it's going to be a nail biter all the way to the end. I imagine I'm probably going to lose about 2 more years of my life tomorrow. So I'm anticipating that already.
Well, one thing that the Cyclones shouldn't have to worry about, at least it appears, is that it should be a pretty decent day weather-wise in Dublin. Should be a pretty good weather day, at least by Europe standards. And obviously, as usual in that portion of the country, it is scheduled to be cloudy tomorrow in the high 60s, lower 70s, potentially some showers later in the day. Obviously, when you talk about games in Ireland and in Europe, you worry about there's always so much rain in that neck of the woods. And it doesn't appear that the rain is going to be an issue. That can always change on a dime when it comes to playing in Europe. But that's something to keep an eye on, is that if that does change, you continue to hammer that under.
I don't know if you seen the most recent two guys. Shout out to Chris and Chris, by the way. They kind of dove into the field situation.
Yeah, it was really
a little bit on Thursday. I think the field situation really kind of benefits Iowa State.
Yeah, I think essentially it sounds like that the field that they use at Aviva Stadium in Dublin is basically the same as what they use at Jack Trice Stadium, where it's kind of that synthetic blend. I think it's mostly natural grass, but it has
it's got a little more technology in it than what Iowa State's does.
Yeah, but essentially the kind of texture of the field is mostly grass with a little bit of that synthetic stuff stitched in just to kind of maintain the structure. If you're curious, and Chris Williams referenced this back, I think about last year. Chris Williams had a really interesting interview with kind of the head groundskeeper for Jack Trice Stadium, and kind of breaking down what goes into taking care of that field year round. But yeah, like you mentioned, it does seem like that the field situation is going to benefit Iowa State, and so that's good that they'll be more experienced on that playing surface.
Interesting side note here. I don't know if you knew this. I work in the irrigation field out in Omaha, and the company I work for, we are big on hunter technology as far as the stuff we install for irrigation. They also are the irrigation contractor for Jack Trice Stadium.
Oh, that's nice.
So just a weird little tidbit.
Anything else on the game, or do we want to pivot to what else we had planned?
Before we pivot, I want to give a quick shout out to my boys at Self-Made. Obviously, we are the Self-Made Sports Network. We didn't do a very good job of announcing that tonight, but if you're happening to tune in, you probably know that already. They're hosting a show tonight in Omaha, all rock show. Obviously, I do hip hop and rap, but we also do show promoting for rock and anyone that's out in the music scene. We're willing to give anyone a chance. So shout out to my boys at the beach house tonight, holding it down while I'm here at home. Kind of dealing with some family stuff and kind of having a fun weekend for myself. So kind of bummed I can't be there to help support, but nonetheless, shout out to my boys Spencer and Vic and Brody One, Bryce, Chubbs, K&R. But yeah, follow Self-Made if you ain't following them already. We got big things coming up. Just wanted to give a quick shout out to the boys, and also want to thank them for hosting the show on the Self-Made page.
Yeah, for sure. I guess real quick, something just to kind of freelance here a little bit. It's just to go over some of the other games tomorrow. Iowa State isn't the only game on the slate tomorrow. There are looks like 4 other Division I games on the schedule. Nothing really openly sexy, but I do just kind of want to shout those out. Looks like we've got Idaho State and UNLV at 3:00. One game that could be a little interesting to watch just from a Big 12 standpoint is Kansas does have a game tomorrow at Fresno State. That'll be kind of interesting to watch.
Side note on that UNLV game real quick. I don't believe that is at their home stadium. I believe they're playing that at Allegiant.
Isn't Allegiant their home stadium?
No, Allegiant's where the Raiders play.
I thought UNLV played at Allegiant Stadium.
They might. If anyone wants to correct me on that.
I only know that because last year in College Football 25, I had a Road to Glory quarterback, and I had him at UNLV, and they played all the
I think you might be right, actually, because
Iowa
State played at UNLV a couple years ago.
Yeah, it looks like UNLV's home stadium is Allegiant Stadium, which is cool nonetheless. That's kind of a unique experience.
Spectacular
for Mountain West team. So
I was there a couple years ago for a Raiders Chiefs game. It's a spectacular stadium.
It looks really nice, and then just kind of the rest of the slate, really a nothing game from our perspective. Sam Houston in Western Kentucky at 6:00, and then unfortunately, even though it's college football's back, we don't have the traditional very late RIP Pac-12 after dark. We do have Stanford and Hawaii. It's very strange to see that Stanford-Hawaii game being at 6:30 p.m. That just seems like the kind of game that should be starting at midnight.
So is that 6:30 p.m.? Is that at Hawaii, or is that
that's our time? That's 6:30 p.m. our time. The game is played in Honolulu, so that's really like almost a noon game. Like I said, it's so weird to just have that last game. It just feels like when you see that Stanford and Hawaii game on your schedule, it should be starting at midnight or 11:59 p.m.
Yeah, because they ain't got to go far to get there.
Yeah, so but that's kind of a bummer that we don't get our, I guess. Well, isn't Stanford in the ACC now, or
yes,
Mountain West ACC after dark matchup? But I guess we'll have to wait till later in the week. The games pick up again on Thursday, where you see a lot of action there. Won't go through all of that, but yeah, college football's back. Excited about it. Do we want to pivot to talking about the Heisman Trophy, our Heisman Trophy picks?
Yeah, I'm really curious to see what you had. I know you mentioned this to me, and I kind of looked into it this afternoon. I'm gonna full disclosure. I don't like anybody who they have odds for. I think this is the most wide open run that anyone could have this year. I mean, you're seeing names like Sam Levitt being brought up as a potential Heisman favorite. He doesn't have the top odds, but just even the fact that someone like him is being brought up to me was kind of mind blowing.
Yeah, and like you said, that's fine. That's exactly what I was thinking. That there really wasn't anybody that stuck out to me. Just kind of looking at the odds here, the odds-on favorite.
Go ahead and say it.
At plus 700 is Arch Manning, who, I mean, I get why he's the favorite, and
I don't buy into it.
Yeah, I don't either.
I got to see him play a couple games.
Yeah, I do too. Then you've got Cade Klubnik, the quarterback from Clemson, Garrett Nussmeier from LSU. Really unimpressed with that pick. You got Jeremiah Smith, who I believe is a wide receiver at Ohio State, and then then you have Carson Beck as a plus 1,800 favorite. So I guess pretty unenthused with that top five. I guess if I had to pick one name, I'd probably pick Cade Klubnik from Clemson. But because I'm pretty unimpressed with the candidates we have here, just kind of wanted to run down some kind of more dark horse names. Now, I guess this guy isn't necessarily a dark horse because he's literally just outside that top five at number 6, and that's Lenoir Sellers at South Carolina. The running back from Notre Dame, Jeremiah Love, I think is kind of an interesting pick. Again, we had mentioned that Avery Johnson is a plus 5,000 guy for the Heisman. That might be a guy worth throwing $5 on. There are a couple other guys on here.
I know Ryan Williams made that list.
Yeah, that's another good one. I kind of forgot about him, Ryan Williams. That's kind of an interesting pick. I like that. I like that as well. I mean, obviously, he had a tumultuous offseason. You got Nico Iamaleava from UCLA. Just considering the competition, maybe he could have some opportunities to show out. He's a plus 12,000 favorite.
Good $2 pick right there.
Yeah. Another guy that I think maybe could be a decent dark horse pick is Caden Salter. He's the new quarterback at Colorado. He played at Liberty last year. Just another guy to think about. Not really seeing a whole lot of guys after that. You've got, I guess, one guy that we didn't talk about from the Kansas State perspective is Dylan Edwards, their running back. He's pretty solid, but if anybody were to come from that Kansas State room, it would of course be Avery Johnson. So that's really what I'm looking at. If I had to pick one guy at the top, I'd probably pick Klubnik. I think Jeremiah Smith is kind of interesting. Who would you go with if you had to pick your Heisman?
Well, you're gonna laugh because you said you didn't like him, but I kind of like Nussmeier.
Okay. Any particular reason behind that?
I'm not bought into the Manning hype, and I really don't trust any other name on that list. I really don't trust Nussmeier either.
No, I don't either.
I think it's kind of a crapshoot at this point. If it were up to me and I had $1 million, I'd just put a couple bucks on everybody, and at least hopefully someone with plus 4-digit odds could make all your money back. So I do love Jeremiah Smith. I know Devontae Smith won it a couple years ago, and that kind of almost seems like an outlier as far as a Heisman winner. I just don't know if Smith can do enough to kind of make that jump. I know he's super young too, so it's probably going to be almost impossible for a sophomore wide receiver to do enough to build his case to win the award. So
I think you made a really good point on Ryan Williams, though. I'd kind of looked over his name when I was scrolling through the list. He's a plus 4,000 guy. Obviously, he's a wide receiver, but I think he's another guy. This year? I was going to ask you the same thing. I don't know who Alabama's quarterback is this year.
Somebody watching, please tell us who is Alabama's quarterback.
I don't know who Alabama's quarterback is this year. I guess.
Full disclosure, I don't care, but.
Yeah, because and that's kind of the thing when it comes to sometimes it feels silly picking a wide receiver as Heisman because like if the wide receiver is having a good enough for the season, why wouldn't you just pick the quarterback? But obviously it's something that you've seen before, quite literally last year with Travis Hunter winning the Heisman Trophy. So I'm looking at Alabama's quarterbacks. I don't know which one of these mediocre looking individuals is their starting quarterback.
Well, you're doing better than me because I can't even find their quarterbacks right now. So not good news for Alabama. They do actually, now that I'm going through their roster, they do have a Justin Jefferson on their roster, but he's a linebacker.
A gentleman by the name of Ty Simpson is going to be Alabama's starting quarterback.
Really?
I see that on August 11th, so that's about 11 days ago. Ty Simpson. Looks like Chris Lowe from ESPN reported that Ty Simpson will open the season as Alabama's starting quarterback. Coach Kalen DeBoer said. Looks like he was the backup the past 2 seasons, his 4th year on campus. So yeah, I really wasn't that familiar with him. So listen, I guess if he can get the ball to, I guess that's kind of
You
a
just better spam that X button if you're him.
yeah.
Throw the ball to Williams.
So that's kind of a situation where maybe the conditions are right for a wide receiver to win the award, as long as Ty Simpson is able to get the ball over to Ryan Williams. He's really an unimpressive looking quarterback. So
Or we could be total idiots and it is Arch Manning, clearly.
I think that's one of those things where obviously after a couple of games you could
You're
really
gonna
have
kinda
this,
know where you're
this
at,
light
where he
bulb
stands.
moment with Art. I mean, I know he's got good wheels. Maybe he could make something out of that, but I don't know. I think that Heisman race is wide open.
Well, we're gonna find out what he's made of here in game 1 for him because they play Ohio State.
Oh, do they? That's
yes,
a hell of
I
a
believe
game.
it's Texas, Ohio State,
that
week
sounds
1.
right.
So, I mean, we're gonna find out what he's made of right away. I know he did well in spots where he got to jump in last year, but you just kind of wait to see what remains to be known as far as that goes.
Yep, you're correct. On August 30th, they've got is that a Sunday? I think that's not a Sunday. Anyway, yeah, that should be an interesting game. That's the number 1 ranked Texas Longhorns versus the number 3 ranked Ohio State Buckeyes, and that is in Columbus. It's not oftentimes those early season games they'll throw that on a neutral site or something like that, but that's a legit home game for the Buckeyes.
That's got to be a home and home series.
Yeah, you would think so. I don't know always how that works when it comes to football. I'm more familiar with the basketball side of that kind of thing, but yeah, that's a hell of a matchup.
I guess while we're talking about it, big news in the last couple of days is the SEC finally was bullied into going to 9 conference games. They've played traditionally 8 for as long as anybody can remember, and then obviously they play their cupcake opponent in the middle of November. This will be the last year of that, and then another stipulation that the SEC has come out with is they're going to have to play at least one team from a Power 4.
Oh, I'd miss that. That's kind of interesting.
So,
yeah,
like a South Carolina will have to play like an Iowa State or an Iowa in at least one of those 3 non-conference games. So, props to the SEC for finally kind of stepping up to the plate and then kind of doubling down on that. They've talked about being the toughest conference in the nation for years, and no one's kind of really believed them. And now they're kind of really doubling down on that. And depending on who those teams play, they could really kind of run away with that belt as far as that goes. So
yeah, I always thought that was interesting how those SEC teams, they kind of played that cupcake game there in the middle of November. It's actually how I have some family ties to the state of Louisiana, and so I do pull for LSU a little bit, and I actually went to an LSU game. I think it was back in 2017, and yeah, it was
down in Death Valley.
Yeah, and it was
probably had to be electric.
Yeah, it was great. It was against Rice, so it was their bullshit game of November. So yeah, I always thought that was kind of interesting. So, but yes, the Death Valley is even for their game against Rice, it was an electric environment.
I'd probably put it up there with Memorial Stadium for the Huskers.
Yeah, that looks like a hell of a situation. I'll have to make it over to Lincoln for one of those games one of these days. That'd be kind of interesting to experience. I think that's one of those things that I don't get too caught up in my fandom, and I'm really open to kind of going to other college stadiums except for Kinnick. and kind of experiencing
Kinnick is nice, so you got to go at least once.
No, I'm never gonna.
Kinnick is nice. Shout out to Uncle Bob. He gave me and my other uncle Kurt free tickets to the Iowa-Nebraska game back in 2016. Great seats. I think Iowa ended up kicking the shit out of them. I think they won like 55-14 or something like that, but good atmosphere nonetheless. I hate to say it, but I was definitely rooting for the Huskers. Obviously I got my Iowa State attire on the night, but I do have Nebraska clothing in my closet just because I live in Nebraska and I got a bunch of Nebraska friends. They're kind of like my adopted team, especially since we don't play each other anymore. So
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think that's
kind of a
cool that you
fandom
have
by
that.
default. But don't get me wrong, if I'm ever in Memorial Stadium, there is Iowa State gear on me somewhere concealed on my body. So
There you go. Love it. Love it.
Spirit of Trice is always with me when I'm in Memorial Stadium.
All right, that's about all I had on my list. Did you have anything else on your list, on your rundown that we needed to cover?
I don't think so. I think we covered most of it. I did kind of want to start something new where we since we're doing this on Friday nights, I was talking to my dad earlier about this. I know I agreed to Friday nights, and then as soon as I agreed to it, it works out for both of us just because we don't have anything going on the next day. But I did kind of shoot myself in the foot for starting the weekend a little bit. I gotta kind of behave myself a little more until we get done with the show, and then once the show's done, then I can kind of let loose. But what I wanted to start talking about a little more was kind of like our weekend plans and what we got going on and what's coming up, and if you got anything going on. I know I got a jam-packed weekend this week.
Yeah, I don't have much going on. Just kind of enjoying that last quiet weekend before football season ramps up. Obviously, next weekend we'll be at Jack Trice. Obviously, going to those Iowa State football games is a blast, and I love doing it. But as I'm sure you know, it is basically a day-long commitment. It's a very tiring thing to do.
Absolutely. If you're going to go to any football game, you got to get up there at 11. Doesn't matter if they kick off at 6, kick off at 11. If they kick off at 11, you got to be there even earlier. So, but it's a good time nonetheless. Cy-Town's going to be hopefully completed here, I believe, next spring or maybe spring of 27.
I think you're gonna get the bulk of it done this next year, this next off season.
If you haven't been to Jack Trice and you don't get it, if you're sitting in the south end zone there, looking out to towards Hilton, once they get that Cy-Town all done, it's going to be a beautiful backdrop behind the Jacobson building.
Yeah.
It's incredible what we grew up with at Jack Trice, with grass on both sides, no bowl, to what it's turned into today. So highly recommend anyone that hasn't been, get out there and check it out. Great atmosphere, good crowd.
I guess you were right. It does look like they have one extra year for Cy-Town. I believe, I'm only saying this because I believe when I'm looking up, as you remember,
yes,
Iowa State announced that the Iowa high school boys tournament is going to get moved to Hilton in 2027. If I remember the timing correctly, they're going to kind of use that first boys tournament as a bit of a soft launch for Cy-Town. So yeah, we will have to bear 2 more football seasons without Cy-Town, but after that, it's going to be,
at least there's some buildings there now, though, because looking at it last year, it was just a giant dirt patch.
Yeah.
So
that's one thing I'm really excited to hopefully bring to this show is my in person. I plan on going to all the football games, so I'll be excited to bring any insight that I have from watching those games and kind of feeling the environment. So
well, hopefully as we figure out this software here and I can get a little more versatile with how to run this screen, we can start throwing pictures up and maybe some videos, but that remains to be seen to what I can retain as far as knowledge when it comes to what we're using here.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna land the plane.
You didn't ask me about what I'm doing this weekend yet.
Oh, that's right. Sorry. Well, Josh, what are you doing this weekend?
Oh, baby, big weekend. Obviously, rushed into town to get this show going tonight. This is something I've always kind of wanted to do from when I initially brought it up to JT here about doing something like this. I always kind of wanted to do a show in person. We're checking that off the list tonight. Tomorrow morning, getting up early to go play 18 with my father. Hoping to shoot under 100. If I can catch fire, hopefully under 95, but I don't know if that's going to happen. So
if you don't mind disclosing which course do you play at?
It's a course in, he told me. It's nothing close. I believe it's in like Newton or something like that. It's like 30 minutes away from here.
Okay.
It's a little 9-hole course, so you play both 9s twice.
I see.
He's played there a couple times. He said it's really nice. So We're teeing off at 7:30 doing that. First tee time of the day, so no one's in front of us. So we're going to kind of try and speed golf and get that out of the way. And then obviously having a bunch of people over at their house for the game tomorrow. Good food, good drinks, hopefully a good win. And then we're going straight from the game to I know I talked about it a little bit last week, but the fantasy draft.
Oh, yes.
That I am the defending champion in. And this will be the first time that I'm making a in-person draft with these guys in this group. So
did you say you have the 5th pick? Is that
I have the 8th pick.
The 8th pick, okay. Who are you kind of eyeballing for that pick? Do you know? Or
if he's there, I'm definitely probably going to take Nico Collins. I had Collins last year. He was on an absolute tear the first 8 weeks.
I had to look up who Nico Collins
before his injury. The Texans.
Oh yeah.
So if he's there, probably going to take him. It might be a little bit of a reach. He's looking to go like 13th or 14th, but obviously you got to pick your spots with guys who you want. And then I was gonna go with Jackson on the turnaround, but I just seen the other day that he's dealing with a hand injury right now, so might have to look into that strategy. But I think those are 2 solid first picks. Obviously, Brock Bowers coming back in a keeper league, only giving up a 6th round pick for him, so great value there. And then just kind of leaving the rest of it up to God at that point after those first 2 picks. So hoping to defend the title, first time champion, been in this league for 13 years. So a lot of blood, sweat, and mostly tears have come before this.
All right. Well,
so
that's fun.
Other than that, I want to give a quick shout out to my boy Alex Byer. I see him in here in the group chat. What's going on, my dog? I might see you a little later tonight. We'll kind of see what's going on once we get off air. But I'm gonna go ahead and say it this time. Do you want to land the plane?
Yeah, I can go ahead and land the plane. So thanks for tuning in, everybody, live in person from the basement.
Yes, sir.
Of the estate of Slim's parents. So we'll catch you guys next time. See you later.
All right, y'all. Have a good night. Go Clones.
Go Clones.